Today, I'm going to share with you the study system that got me through 5 years of medical school without completely burning out. If you have ever opened a medical textbook, looked at the table of contents, and thought to yourself that there is absolutely no way you're supposed to learn all of this, then this video is for you. Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm a 5th-year medical student, and on this channel, I share my life in medical school along with study tips and everything I'm learning throughout the journey. If that sounds like something you would enjoy, I would love to have you here, so please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Now, when I first started medical school, I genuinely thought I wasn't studying hard enough. I would spend 6 or 7 hours at my desk, close my textbook, feeling productive, and then the next day I would realize that I couldn't even explain half of what I had spent the entire afternoon learning. It was incredibly frustrating, obviously, because I knew I was putting in the effort, but I wasn't really getting the results. So naturally, I started trying everything. I highlighted my notes, I rewrote lectures, I made summaries, I watched endless how to study videos. I downloaded every app that made me feel productive, but in reality it wasn't. None of this has actually helped me remember the information, so eventually after lots of trial and error, I realized something really important. The problem wasn't that I wasn't studying enough, it was that I didn't have a system. Once I built a study routine around how our brains actually learn and retain information, studying became so much less overwhelming. I started remembering information for much longer, recalling it much easier. So today and in this video, I want to walk you through the exact system. It is the same 4-phase framework I've been using throughout medical school, and honestly, if I had to start medical school all over again tomorrow, this is exactly what I would do. Phase number 1 is overview. The first mistake that I made in medical school was jumping straight into chapter 1. I thought the sooner I started memorizing, the better. But that's actually backwards. Imagine someone asked you to build a 1,000-piece puzzle without ever showing you the picture on the box. You could probably still do it, but it would take so much longer because you don't actually know what you're trying to build. That's exactly what studying feels like when you don't know the overall structure of a subject. So before I learn a single detail, I spend around 20 minutes just skimming through the subject, looking at the table of contents, at the topics, the subtopics, and after I would basically group all of these into one big checklist in Google Docs, Notion, whatever app that you would prefer. This will become your dashboard for the whole course. As you work throughout the semester, you tick off topics, you mark weak areas, and you keep notes of concepts that you know you will need to revisit before exams. It sounds incredibly simple, but having this bird's eye view makes the whole subject feel so much less overwhelming. Phase number 2 is understanding the content. Now for me, that phase starts with attending the lectures or watching the recorded lectures. One thing I always make sure to do is to have the lecture slides or notes open while the professor is teaching. That way, whenever they mention something that isn't already written on the slides, I can add it immediately. Those little comments often end up being really important. After the lecture, I sit down and I go through the material properly. But here's the goal. We're not trying to memorize anything yet. We're simply trying to understand it. I think a lot of students rush into memorizing before they actually understand what is happening. But understanding is the foundation that everything else is built on. If you don't understand a concept, you need to go back to look at another explanation, to watch another video, read another resource, whatever it takes until it finally clicks. Because memorizing something you don't understand is like trying to build a house on sand. It will eventually fall apart. Now, phase number 3 is active recall. For months, I thought rereading was studying. I'd finish a chapter feeling really confident because everything looked familiar. Then I'd close the book and suddenly I couldn't explain any of it. And if you had been through something similar to this, then you're not alone. That's because recognizing information isn't the same as remembering it. And exams don't test recognition, they test recall. So instead of asking myself, have I read this before? I started asking myself, can I explain this without looking? Sometimes this meant covering the page and trying to explain the concept out loud. Sometimes it meant asking myself questions after every paragraph. If I couldn't answer them, I knew I hadn't actually learned the material yet. Eventually, I started using Anki. And to be honest with you, the first weeks weren't really that fun. Every morning, I'd open the app and there would already be a huge pile of reviews waiting for me. But after a few weeks, something changed. I stopped forgetting old material. Instead of cramming everything again before exams, I was constantly reviewing information just before I was about to forget it. That's because Anki uses spaced repetition, which is based on the forgetting curve and is supported by a lot of scientific research on how our memories work. The only catch here is that you would have to stay consistent and you really need to use it every single day. So if your university already has pre-made decks, definitely take advantage of them, or ask students in the years above if they have already made decks for your subjects. You will probably have to edit them a little so that they match your university's lectures and learning objectives, but that's still much faster than starting completely from scratch. Phase 4, and obviously it's going to be practice questions. The final part of my study routine is practice questions, and I think this is something that a lot of students leave until far too late. Personally, I use AMBOS because I love how you can filter questions according to very specific topics. So if I have just finished studying asthma, I will immediately answer asthma questions. Doing questions immediately help me discover gaps in my understanding while the topic is still fresh. Sometimes I think I know something really well, then I get half the questions wrong. And honestly, I'd much rather find out now rather than during the actual exam. For me, combining spaced repetition through Anki with continuously doing practice questions has been an absolute game changer in my medical school journey. One helps me retain information for the long term, and the other teaches me how to actually apply it. And in medicine, you really need both. So this is the 4-phase study system that got me through medical school and has carried me so well. It isn't about studying for more hours. It is about making hours that you already spend on studying actually count. Of course, everyone learns a little differently, and this isn't the only way. But if you're feeling overwhelmed by the amount of information in medical school, I'd really encourage you to try this system for a few weeks and see how it works out for you. I would love to know what your favorite study technique is, so please let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe if you would like to follow more of my medical school journey, and I will see you in the next one.